It's an absolutely bonkers day in the world of Magic the Gathering. There has just been a mega leak from the upcoming Modern Horizons 3 set, and the cards are unbelievable. Some of the most broken enchantments you've ever seen. Counterspells that should never have been printed. And if you're a fan of Eldrazi, today is your best day.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, I hope the day finds you well because we are going on a hype journey. The leak from Modern Horizons 3 is absolutely mind-blowing. Some of these cards are straight up just too powerful. But on top of that, there is some amazing flavor in here as well. Wizards has actually done a good job of giving a nod to the old story in the game too. So ultimately, I don't have anything more to say. Let's go look at the cards. All right, my friends, we're starting out with a cuckoo banana card that shows just how far Magic the Gathering has gone down insane power creep lane. This is Tarmogoyf Nest, a play on Squirrel Nest, but Squirrel Nest only made 1/1 squirrels. This is 1 green and 2 for an enchant land that says enchanted land has 1 green and 1 tap, create a Tarmogoyf token. It's a 1 and 1 green Lurgoyf creature that has Tarmogoyf's power is equal to the number of card types among cards in all graveyards, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. So it counts planeswalkers, lands, sorceries, instants, all that stuff, and you can essentially get a massive creature on the cheap. And at one time, Tarmogoyf was the king of efficiency for getting a ton of power for very little mana. But we've reached the point in Magic's history where Tarmogoyf has become a has-been, honestly, to the point where they say, hey, let's just go ahead and make a land that generates Tarmogoyf tokens. I could never have conceived of this. This is absolutely nuts. I will totally be putting this into my cube. I do very much enjoy the artwork. You have this forest, and in the background, you can just see a Tarmogoyf lurking. They just come rumbling out. You're literally breeding Tarmogoyfs on the cheap. It's absolutely insane to me. And that isn't even the craziest thing we're going to look at today. The power level of this set is so off the charts. Anyways, Tarmogoyfs and Lurgoyfs specifically are an ongoing theme for this set. Take a look at this. Now this, we can't actually see the name of it, so I'm calling this Swarmogoyf, okay? So this is 1 green and 2 for a star. It has the exact same power and toughness concept as the Tarmogoyf we just saw. You can see it down at the bottom where it says Swarmogoyf's power is equal to the number of card types in your graveyard and then +1. But above that, notice that it has trample and myriad. So for 1 more mana than the cost of a normal Lurgoyf, you get to slap on trample and the myriad ability for commander. Well, obviously, I mean, you can use this card technically not in commander, but you want to be playing myriad cards in Commander and other multiplayer formats, because it says whenever this creature attacks, for each opponent other than the defending player, you can create a token of it that's tapped and attacking that player. I mean, you get rid of the token at the end of combat, but so what? You get to swing with a Goyf on everybody. And you can see that this one has a bunch of different heads. He's looking in all kinds of directions, and it makes me wonder if they literally just kind of splorp off of him the same way that you ever seen gremlins when they get wet and they're pew, pew, pew. I wonder if that's the same idea here for Swarmogoyf. Either way, I cannot get over the nuttiness of the cards in this set. After that, we've got Shilgengar, Sire of Famine, and I love this card so much. Not for the mechanics of it. Let's talk about those first, and then I'll tell you why I love this card. So, 2 black and 3 for a 6/6 flying legendary Elder Demon. It has sacrifice another creature, create a blood token. If you sacrificed an angel this way, create a number of blood tokens equal to its toughness instead. And it has the ability that you can use for either hybrid white or black. You pay 3, sacrifice 6 blood tokens, which is a lot of tokens. Return each creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it, which means if it would go to the graveyard, instead it gets exiled. That's a newer ability. And those creatures are vampires in addition to their other types. Now, it's already a 6/6 flyer for 5, which ain't too shabby, but the flavor on this card is off the charts. First of all, take a look at the artwork. This is a demon lounging on a throne made out of angel wings, bro. I love it. He's sitting there in his dark majesty with his wings spread wide, just totally, yo, this is my chill spot, bro. And not only is the throne made out of angel wings, he has them piled everywhere just to relax and put his feet up on like an ottoman. It's so absolutely insane. And if that wasn't enough flavor, this is actually the vampire who's the demon who's responsible for Soren Markov becoming a vampire. This is the demon that made a deal with Edgar Markov, basically Soren's grandfather or whatever, that led the entire family into becoming vampires. He caused a famine on Innistrad and then capitalized on that famine to create a line of vampires. So the ultimate ability, bringing everybody back. I mean, on top of that, he went around slaughtering angels. So it's just, the flavor level on this card is through the roof. And back in the day, this would be considered a super powerful card. But by today's standards, this is like mid-level, maybe to low level on the power scale. But on the epic flavor scale, this is an ultra win. And the artwork is just incredible. I love this card. Anyways, moving on, we've got Volatile Stormdrake. This is a funky one. 1 blue and 1 for a 3/2 flying hexproof from activated and triggered abilities. That's not something that you see very frequently. Normally, hexproof will either be a blanket hexproof or it'll stop things like instants, sorceries, maybe spells overall, but not triggered and activated abilities. Having protection from triggered abilities is a very strange and rare ability that I like. But we've got more than that on this card. So when it enters the battlefield, exchange control of Volatile Stormdrake and target creature an opponent controls. If you do, you get 4 energy. Then you sacrifice that creature unless you pay an amount of energy equal to its mana value. So obviously this is interesting just in the fact that it's bringing energy back, right? We haven't seen energy since the Kaladesh days, and we were told it's super parasitic. And I mean, yeah, we saw it a little bit in Fallout, right? They did do that, but that's like outside the normal scope of regular Magic sets. So energy wasn't really considered something we'd see regularly, and yet here we have it. On top of that, this is a twist on Gilded Drake, where Gilded Drake was 1 blue and 1 for a 3/3 flyer. When it came into play, you had to trade it for one of your opponent's creatures or sacrifice the Drake, because back in the day, getting a 3/3 flyer for 2 mana was way too strong. Nowadays, getting 2 mana 3/2 flyer doesn't feel nearly as broken because, I mean, Magic's literally outpaced Tarmogoyf at 2 mana, where you can have a 6/7 or bigger, right? So things have definitely changed. It's also interesting to note that you're not required to sacrifice this guy if you don't make the exchange. Now, you do have to make an exchange if your opponent has a creature, though. You can't just choose not to do the swap. You must if your opponent has a creature. But if for some reason, let's say you target one of your opponent's creatures and then they sacrifice it so that you can't have it, then you still get to keep the Drake. You don't lose it. And when you get that opponent's creature, you get 4 energy, but it better cost 4 mana or less, or you better have built up some energy in advance. Otherwise, you're just going to lose the creature right away. But even then, you can just literally use it as blue removal. 1 blue and 1 to basically swap your opponent's biggest creature for a 3/2 flyer. So that's not too shabby. If they have a gigantic beast and you just go, here you go, I'll give you that guy. He's too big for me to pay the energy cost and keep, but at least he's out of my hair. That is something interesting for blue, because blue doesn't have a lot of creature destruction, even in this sort of pseudo-destructive way. The artwork, pretty straightforward. It's a Drake flying through the air, supposedly maybe drawing the lightning out of clouds. I don't know. I feel like this artwork might have originally been some kind of Drake getting bolted almost, because when it comes to Modern Horizons, what they do is they use slush art, a bunch of artwork they already have kicking around, and they just make cards that are appropriate for it. And as far as I'm concerned, Modern Horizon style sets are the perfect place for slush art. Now, moving on, we've got Echoes of Eternity. This thing is so bonkers. It's going to make Artifact players so happy. It's going to make Eldrazi players delirious with joy. 3 colorless and 3, so it costs 6. It's a very expensive enchantment, right? It's also a Kindred enchantment, and if you don't know what Kindred is, this is the new way that Wizards describes tribal. So all cards that were previously tribal are considered Kindred going forwards. Now, this says if a triggered ability of a colorless spell you control or another colorless permanent you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. So you can have the Eldrazi that go on the stack and have an effect when you cast them, draw cards, take an extra turn. This will literally double them. If you don't know what a triggered ability is in Magic, it's anything that starts with if or when. So if it says whenever, it says when. If it says if, that's a triggered ability. This will double it if it's coming from a colorless source. And then, as if that wasn't enough, the second ability, whenever you cast a colorless spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. Now, don't get confused when you see the part about choosing new targets thinking, oh, this only covers instants and sorcerers that I can retarget. No. This covers any Eldrazi you cast, you automatically get an extra copy of. Any artifact you cast, you automatically get another copy of. This is nutty. The colorless aspect of it, when it comes to the triggered ability and activated ability side, or not activated ability, because it's only triggered abilities, sorry. But the colorless triggered ability side of it also includes any lands that you have with triggered abilities, because all lands are colorless. This is an absolutely bonkers card, and only one of the things that's reining it in is its casting cost. 6 mana plus the fact you have to have 3 colorless specifically and 3 generic. The generic's easy. Colorless is a little tricky, but there's ways to cheat these cards into play too. This is insane, and the artwork is wild too. You got some kind of weird geometric Akira blob escaping. Canada! I don't know, man. It's intense. I'm sure it looks way grosser when you don't have a blurry version. But when it comes to these leaks, you take what you can get, because I got to see that goodness. Moving on, and this is one of the craziest cards that we've seen for sure. Moving on, we've got Flare of Denial, another absolutely bonkers card that's going to make Merfolk players weep with joy. Apparently, we're getting a cycle across all the 5 colors with this sacrifice style spell. So, on the surface, it's 2 blue and 1 for an instant that counters target spell. That's nothing to write home to your mother about. But when you read the other part where it says you may sacrifice a non-token blue creature rather than paying this spell's mana cost, that's worth writing 15 letters home to your mom. Mama, my Merfolk deck is unstoppable. You can sacrifice your crappiest little blue dork to counter a spell. You don't have to worry about keeping any mana open. This isn't quite as good as something like Force of Will, where you can have the card in your hand and do it, right? But at the same time, this is extremely powerful. Wizards of the Coast likes to play with fire by ignoring casting costs, and casting costs are the balancing mechanic of the game. This counterspell feels so unfair to me, like so unfair. This is totally going to get slapped. Why wouldn't you slap this in every Merfolk deck ever? It allows you to get even more aggressive because you can just keep swinging and not having to leave any mana up because your Flare of Denials will be there. You just lose your... Oh, are you about to wrath the board? Nah, you got rid of my smallest guy. You about to put out a huge problem for me? Nah. You're your game-winning combo card? Nah. I sacrifice my little Merfolk donk? You get wrecked. Like, bro, amazing. And the artwork, this is a blurry version, so I want to see the clear version. But I really enjoy the idea of this because it looks like all these water droplets are being pulled up by this mage and they're being swirled up into a cyclone vortex that is materializing out of nowhere, and a lightning blast hits it. But at the same time, the cost of this is that the individual who's pulling the magic up, their life force is expended, being put into the magic. And from that perspective, it actually feels like a white card for its heroic sacrifice level, right? This is a very interesting design, but it feels way too strong to me. Like, this is nuts. Like, blue needs more easy to access counterspell nonsense. Anyways, let's move on. Oh, hold on. Come on now. There we go. Speaking of blue nonsense, here's Harbinger of the Seas. Yo, do you like Blood Moon or Magus of the Moon, but you always wanted in blue? Your dream just came true, son. Merfolk are getting everything on Earth in this set. 2 blue and 1 for a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard. Non-basic lands are islands. Oh, are you playing with fetch lands and shock lands and all that? Nah, son. You're playing with islands. It's so crazy, the shutdown capability of this. Now, I suppose on one hand, I feel like Blood Moon or Magus of the Moon, denying your opponent by giving them mountains instead of islands feels a little bit better, because I feel like blue's a little more prevalent and stronger, so people can take advantage of blue a little bit more if all their lands have been turned to blue. But the real thing about this is not only does it shut down your opponent's multicolored lands, utility lands, all that, but it also enables merfolk land walking, because there's merfolk lords that straight up go, okay, guess what? I give island walking. So on top of hosing your opponent's mana, you actually also get to make your dudes unblockable. Like, this is bonkers. For 3 mana, all they did was go, okay, Magus of the Moon is 1 red and 2. Let's make this 2 blue and 1 to make it harder to cast. Like, that changes anything. The flavor text says, the rising moon calls mercilessly to the waves, commanding the sea to rise high enough to devour mountains. This is a fun nod towards the whole Blood Moon, Magus of the Moon, and the fact that moons affect the moon affects the tides on Earth. So it affecting water levels and everything is a nice extra level of flavor on this. I really dig it. The artwork, a Harbinger of the Seas, this one just feels like a regular old merfolk with a staff, and her just kind of blasting it that way. It doesn't feel like she's turning everything into islands, but whatever. Flood the Earth. This thing is just powerhouse. It's crazy. It's crazy to me. Flare of Denial and this, and I'm sure blue's going to get even more buck nutty nonsense, right? So then we've got Thief of Existence, and this is where we actually get a little bit of a clear spoiler. Look at how crisp it is. 1 green, 1 colorless, and 1 for a 3/4 with Devoid, so it counts as a colorless creature. So remember, when we looked at that enchantment before that says when you have a triggered ability from a colorless source, even though it has green in its casting cost and green makes up its color identity for commander rules, it counts as no color. It says, when you cast this spell, exile up to 1 target non-creature, non-land permanent an opponent controls with mana value 4 or less. If you do, Thief of Existence gains. When this creature leaves the battlefield, target opponent draws a card. So this is an interesting tweak on what we normally see in white, where white has the ability to exile cards temporarily, but then the cards come back. Things like Buried in the Garden, for example, white-green, so it is moving into green, right? But ultimately, this is mostly the domain of white. And so in this situation, though, the thing is actually being removed entirely from existence, but you gain a card as a result when you get rid of it. So this can be used to remove a big problem that won't come back, but because it's green, it doesn't affect creatures, because green can't really affect creatures that easily in terms of getting rid of them, other than either barreling over them with giant creatures or straight up using a fight spell to win. So I like this. This is an interesting design. And I also like the flavor behind it, where Thief of Existence, it's literally taking something that exists and taking it out of existence. But some of that arcane energy gets left inside it as a residue that you can harvest when you destroy it. And it definitely has the messed up Eldrazi vibe with this crazy alien looking being with all its crazy little, I don't know which exactly this one's supposed to emulate. It's got kind of Emrakul-ish vibes to it, but at the same time, it might be inspired by one of the other Eldrazi Titans. Either way, I love the somewhat hypnotic swirl background. It's like it shows up and it warps reality, and you can see reality warp around it, and all of a sudden something that existed is just gone like it never was. That's some cool flavor. After that, we've got Null Drifter. This guy's blurry. This is a Eldrazi play on Muldrifter. And Muldrifter was a 5-mana 2/2 that when it came into play, you get to draw 2 cards and you could evoke it for 3. But Null Drifter is a 7-cast 4/4 Eldrazi elemental. When you cast it, you draw 2 cards. So instead of when it comes into play, if you cheat it out, you don't get to draw the cards like you would with Maul Drifter. So if you animate it from the graveyard or whatever, but this is another card that gets a benefit from the enchantment that we look at. You cast this, it does double trigger. You get to draw 4 cards off it. So 4/4 flying, Annihilator 1. Whenever you attack, your opponent sacks a creature. And yes, in case you're wondering, the enchantment that doubles triggered effects, it does double Annihilator. And Annihilator, if you've never played against it, is so rough, man. Cards like It That Betrays with its insane Annihilator plus the ability to get the stuff you sacrifice back, so crazy. You just feel like you've got nothing you can do about it. Annihilator 1 isn't too bad, but this also has Evoke for a blue and 2. So you can pay 1 blue and 2, you evoke it out, you get to draw 2 cards for casting it, and then it goes right to the graveyard. But if you have anything that cares about you putting out a creature with 4 power, anything like that, all that would trigger too. And I like the fact that the artwork ties into looking very much like a Mull Drifter. It's shown from the same perspective, the same angle. It's got the same kind of wing flare almost, but it's, I don't know, man. There's just something about it skirting along the top of the waters there with its little tentacles just dangling down. Just, I love Eldrazi monstrosities. They are really, really cool. Anyways, let's take a look at the next card. This is Pearl Ear Imperial Advisor. Back in the day when I played enchantment decks, I would have loved this card because it's so strong. 2 right, 2, it's 2 right, baby. 2 white and 1. 3/4 Fox Advisor, who's legendary, who has lifelink. Enchantment spells you cast have affinity for auras. They cost 1 less to cast for each aura you already have out. And whenever you cast an aura spell that targets a modified permanent you control, draw a card. Now, modified permanents are any creature that has a counter on them, any creature that's equipped, but most importantly, any creature that has an aura on it. So this thing rewards you for piling tons of auras onto one creature. And one of the biggest problems with multi-enchanting a creature in Magic has always been you are setting yourself up for massive card disadvantage. If you put 2 enchantments on a creature and I play a kill spell on that creature and then you lose it, you've lost 3 cards to my 1 card. That is terrible. You don't want that happening. But if you've drawn cards off of each aura, even if I destroy your guy, you're not behind because those auras fed you new cards. And Wizards is always trying to find different ways to make auras work where you're not left behind, because they really do make you feel bad when you lose multiple things like that, and they cost you speed. You lose tempo in the game overall. So somebody like this really helps balance it out. And the fact that you can draw cards from casting auras on creatures that have counters as well means your first aura on a creature can give you benefits. I don't see the equip part of this being super relevant most of the time, but who knows? Maybe somebody will prove me wrong. Either way, this is a very, very funky card. I like it. Moving on, we've got Razorfield Ripper. This is another blur bag. 1 white and 1. For one white and 1. 1 white and 2. Apparently I can't read. 1 white and 2 for what I think is a 2/2 or a 3/3, but the power and toughness isn't on there, so we'll have to wait and see. It is an artifact creature equipment rhino. So it's like those equipments that we saw in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. So whenever this or equipped creature attacks, you get an energy. So it's a source of recurring energy, and you can equip it by either paying 2 mana or 3 energy to put it onto a creature. So on top of getting energy when it attacks, it also gets +X, where X is the amount of energy you have. So while I feel like this is an underwhelming card overall, part of that is because I haven't seen all the energy that's coming from this set, so maybe they'll make it stronger. But I think this is just like they're tossing a bone to people who like energy decks and want to play with the new Fallout stuff that has the energy card, like Liberty Prime. This is a card that says, yo, Liberty Prime, let's be friends. So overall, I mean, the artwork is definitely set on Mirrodin. It's definitely got the different suns in the background. So this looks to me like it was supposed to be originally another sunburst creature, but it never got to see the light of day. This card doesn't really knock my socks off. Then we've got Necro Dominance. Now, actually, before we talk about Necro Dominance, I just want to let you guys know the pictures. You see how you see Sylvan Safekeeper and Kappa Cannoneer behind this card? You can't expect those to be in Modern Horizons as reprints, because it's come out that the person who actually has these leaked cards just picked random cards up off their desk and put them behind this. So Kappa Cannoneer isn't in Modern Horizons 3, and I don't believe Sylvan's Safekeeper is as well, although it could turn out that one is, but it's already been confirmed that Kappa Cannoneer was actually not from Modern Horizons 3 and just made it into the picture. That out of the way, let's talk about Necro Dominance. This is a brand new version of Necropotence, essentially. So it's a 3 black cost legendary enchantment. It's interesting that it's legendary. I'm not sure the purpose of making it legendary for real, because this isn't the kind of enchantment that is going to give you a benefit from having multiple out, right? Because when you look at it, it says skip your draw step. At the beginning of your end step, you can pay any amount of life. If you do draw that many cards, your maximum hand size is 5. And if a card or token we put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So I don't really see the point of making it a legendary enchantment unless you just want to make it so that it can trigger cards that care about legendaries. That part's a little bit wonky to me. If you guys can think of a reason that they would make it legendary for power purposes, something that I'm missing, let me know, because this one I have no idea. Anyways, this is, like I said, new version of Necropotence. Necropotence, if you don't know what it was, old school Ice Age card that was a real test of how much of a beginner you were, because beginners would never want to pay life for anything. You can tell somebody's new to Magic when they make crazy blocks where it's like, I'm attacking you for 2, and they'll block with a really good creature and trade, and you're like, why did you sacrifice that really good creature to stop from going from 20 to 18? Only your last point of life matters in Magic the Gathering. It's the same way that it works in D&D, where somebody can come up and bludgeon 75% of your health off, and you still function at full capacity. I played D&D once with a buddy of mine he basically got shot by an arrow, and then it was his first time playing D&D. So for like 10 minutes, he was like, oh, ow, and we're like, no, don't worry about it, bro. Don't worry about it. The way D&D works is you're fine. When you're at low health, be worried, but otherwise, just treat it as if you're uninjured. You don't have to worry about every single injury. That would make this tedious. But same deal for Magic. Only your last few life points matter. Paying life to Necropotence was nutty because you skip your draw step, but you can put as many cards as you want off to the side and you put them into your hand at the end of the turn. But Necropotence didn't let you draw the cards. Necro Dominance does, which means if you're using something like Sheoldred, you get to literally gain 2 life per card you drew. So it's like, I'll set aside 5 cards for 5 life, draw them all, gain 10 life. It's bonkers. But there's also ways for your opponents to interact with it too. If they have cards that let you steal your, like, oh, I get every draw you get past the first one, like Plagiarize or whatever, Plagiarize would hose Necro Dominance. Oh, you were going to draw 5 cards? Sorry, you can have 1. I'll take the other 4. Thanks for paying that 5 life, bro. Right? So this is a powerful card. I don't know how much of a restriction having a maximum hand size of 5 is in this regard. It feels half tacked on, but they got to do something, because giving like unlimited card draw, which is what this is, you can literally pay 15 life if you want and draw 15 cards. And this thing's going to be even crazier in Commander, where you can just be like, oh, look, I'm at 40 life. I'll pay 30 life and draw 30 cards. I'm going to dig through 30% of my deck. Like, that is crazy. I don't know enough about Modern specifically in regards to the current state of it to say whether Necro Dominance will rise to Dominance, but I mean, there's a reason this is Mythic. It feels ultra powerful. But that wraps up all the spoilers that we have to talk about today. I did talk about some other spoilers in a live stream, or leaks, I should say. Same difference, right? You want to call them leaks, you want to call them spoilers. They're not officially released, so they're technically leaks, but I covered more leaks in a live stream with all kinds of wild language, so I'll leave that here at the end of the video for you if you want to check that out. And speaking of live streams, I'll be doing one tonight over on my Hatcher channel, because I live stream every night, either here or over there. So come on by and hang out if you want to. Big shout out to my patrons. Thank you very much for supporting my channel, and I will see you all, my friends, in the next video.